Hey everybody, I hope y'all are doing well on today. We're gonna hop into a little bit of I don't know if you want to call it motivation, y'all, but it's a little bit of real talk because we're real people having real experiences out here in life, y'all. And everybody doesn't have that closeness with God where they've developed the sense of going to God with absolutely everything. And sometimes when we lack that, we go to others. We'll lean on the understanding or reasoning of people who don't have a closeness with God, which that can be dangerous. That can be dangerous because when you yourself aren't close with God, you'll lack discernment. And sometimes the people that you're going to for that advice, what if they're a snake? Okay, what if they don't want to see you do well? Or what if they just have some underlying anger towards maybe, a situation or a person or something that you're coming to them, to get advice about. So we have to be really careful with that. All right, y'all. So yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say motivation, but of course, I'm sure we're going to close out with some motivation in the end. But it's more like a real talk session, y'all. But firstly, I hope your Sunday has been going well thus far. I hope your weekend has been going well, actually. And one thing's for sure, I do hope you're locking down your relationship with God, y'all, because if you'll be honest with yourself, take a look at what's going on around us. Y'all, this world is in shambles. There is so much going on, and people are afraid. People don't know which way to turn, and they're turning every way but to God. I've already said this before, but reminders are so good. God is going to be still standing when everybody around you who could assist you is not. And some people just aren't going to be able to because they don't have the means. So, what are you going to do then? When you haven't been solidifying your relationship with God, you think you're just going to be able to one day, oh God, I need you. When you've had ample opportunity to build and solidify that relationship prior to disaster. See, you don't want to wait until it's too late, y'all. All right. And we have things to look forward to. We have a lot to look forward to. There is a hope. But when you're not intertwined with God and you're not in the word, you're not meditating on the scriptures and applying these things, you're not aware. Not only are you not aware, you don't believe and have that faith and trust. Okay. So just be careful with that. Okay. That's what I'm saying about that because for the most part, I mean, we're all grown. We can make our own choices. But also know that in making your own choices, you accept, or should I say, you're already putting a signature for the consequences that can come from it. Let me say that again. You can make your own choices. You can do what you want to do. But in that same instant that you decide to do those things, you are pretty much putting a signature or a stamp of approval on the consequences that can come from that. All right, y'all. Um, One of the things that happens a lot today is, there's nothing wrong with going into a relationship, a marriage or something like that with someone who already has children from a previous relationship. And I have my reasons for touching on this topic on today. And again, it's some things that, just need to be spoken about. Sometimes you are just head over heels, lacking discernment yourself. And it's a disaster waiting to happen. All right. And one thing we speak of, or I speak of a lot here, is having a lack of discernment. See, having a lack of discernment already is a setup for disaster going into any relationship. It doesn't even have to be um it doesn't even have to be a intimate one. It could be a friendship as well. Because again, people can cloak themselves, all right? And if you have a veil on yourself and you can't see, plus people, again, we are in a new day and age. People will cloak themselves so that you see one thing. You don't see what's really going on within them. That's why you need discernment, y'all. That's why you need discernment. Because it's gonna blow that cloak right on into the air. You hear me? You understand me? And people won't even be able to pretend in your presence any longer because that cloak has been now removed. Now they are naked. Okay, it's just something to think about. And sometimes, y'all, and I see it happen a lot with men and women, but I'm a woman, so I speak from a womanly standpoint. Um, some of these people haven't even fully matured themselves. Okay, and sometimes they're only in the lives of their children because they have an image they want to keep up, whether it be, for the public, their family, they know that in order to uphold a certain image, they'd have to at least do enough. Okay. They'd have to at least do enough as far as doing right by their children. It doesn't mean that they necessarily want to, because some people truly only care for themselves. So ladies, you'll go right into a relationship, give a man a kid. You don't know diddly deadly what about what's going on prior to you. The way people leave relationships mean a lot, y'all, but we don't even make way to find out because we're led by lust. Okay, you're led by lust, you're led by your feelings, you lack discernment. And in a lot of cases, ladies, now your child that you give to them, if you're next in line, you're going to add to the list of more broken children. All right. There's people, I'm telling you, they do enough to appear to be a good parent to the public. Meanwhile, you don't know what's transpiring with those children. You don't want to get to know them. You don't want to get to know the parent because a lot of times there's lies and stuff so that there's a boundary and so that you don't want to know. But I'm glad to know that I'm so mature to where, no, honey, if I were to ever in my life be with someone outside of my own spouse and they have children, one thing I will want to know is the relationship of those children. There's no way I'm not going to even have communication with the woman. Why do women shy away from that? I can tell you why, because that man is in your head. And if he's good at manipulation, you hate that woman. That woman may have all the tea. See, God will send somebody right up to you with the tea. So you don't even have to fight for it. But today, ladies, again, you'll be led by lust. Sis, you're led by lust. You want to be loved. And a lot of y'all, and this is no pun intended, especially when you already have children, you already have a fair relationship, you're looking for somebody to love you. And you'll accept whatever you can get. That's where adultery and all that comes in, honey. That's a totally different topic. But sis, we got to want better for ourselves because there's a difference between a woman and a girl. And that thin line in between is maturity. You have to mature from a girl and into a woman. And a lot of the things we do, I don't care how old you are, it will reflect your level of maturity. And you could be grown age wise in your 30s or whatever, but you have that childlike mentality. Okay. And then you'll be led by lust. You want to be wanted. You know, they put a label on that, pick me, but that sounds kind of harsh, and it's not that type of conversation. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't want to speak ill of anyone like that. I like to just think that you're misinformed. I like to think you're lost in the sauce. And if a person is good with words, then you let them enter your course of life by having sexual intercourse with them. Honey, you have gotten yourself in a situation. Ladies, you need to be more careful. And again, I know men go through it as well. Okay, I know it goes both ways. A lot of kids are being created just to be hurt. Okay, and so many children are broken. And sometimes God will let us see those things before we even conceive. But no, I'm different. I'm the exception. Oh, he's not going to do that to me. She's not going to do that to me. That's one of the biggest mistakes we can make, y'all. Okay. Yeah, I'm telling you, a selfish person, some things are just a part of people's character. It's not going to change from one person to the next. If a person is not a so great parent, that's in their character. Making more kids is not going to make them be a better parent. So you are not the exception. So be careful when you enter into situationships, whatever it may be, with people who already have children, and especially pay attention to the wordplay. Pay attention to how they speak of the mother of their child, the father of their child. How do they even speak? Because you can tell the truth and not be unruly, but the truth is ugly. Sometimes your truth is just ugly and it is what it is. That doesn't mean a person is kicking you. They're just telling the truth. Okay? Women, we need to do better with our assessment of things. You go out buying your hair weaves, you want the best hair. Okay? You're going through what kind of lashes you want to put over your eyes. You want what's best. You want what enhances you the most, and you're not going to settle for anything less. So why do we settle less and give our bodies to people without thoroughly doing our homework? Why do we do that? Again, it's no pun intended. But for the most part, you need to practice self-love yourself. Because when you practice self-love and when you truly do have morals, there's certain things you're not going to want anyway. And it's not to knock anybody, okay? But there's just certain lifestyles and certain things that you're not going to even want to be tied up in because it will go strictly against your morals. That's why we see so much loose conduct today, because unfortunately, men and women don't have, we're in those times, we're in those last days where the morals are kind of like they've been flushed down the toilet. So you got to be careful with that. I'm tired of seeing stories where children are abused, they're mistreated, this, that, and the third. And it turns out that this parent did it to your child. This person had children before you. But you didn't reach out and see what went on there because they probably painted this beautiful picture. They painted a picture or they did just enough to appear to be good. You didn't have discernment. So you didn't know that, love is love. Love doesn't equate to money. Love doesn't equate to, vacation in the tropics and all of that. That does not equivalent to love, you know? And what's crazier is, ladies, in some cases, you can even speak to children. I'm telling you, get a relationship. You don't need that man or woman's permission. If you decide that you want to go there with somebody, sometimes you do need to know certain parts of a person's past before you can move forward. Let me say that again. You need to know certain parts of a person's past before you even try to move forward. Because sometimes you're literally a placeholder. I'm telling you, babe, the wrong man or woman will use you as a placeholder. Placeholders get pregnant all the time. The man will give you everything but his last name. He'll put a baby in you, give that baby his last name, and he may not give it to you. So we just need to be wiser, ladies. Okay, y'all already know how I am over here. It's all about being better all the way around. Okay, and I just feel like this is something that really needs to be said because so many women keep falling into the trap. Keep falling into the trap. That's why I think so many women, some situations they won't even, roll into, but it's all up to what we want to do. But if you're going to go into a relationship with someone who has luggage and baby children from a current or past relationship, that's baggage, that's luggage. You need to have your I's dotted and those T's crossed. Don't let no man or woman have you so lost in the sauce. Again, 9 times out of 10, you've allowed them to enter your course of life. You're sleeping with them. So they're running all kind of game on you. And so you're complacent and all of that. So you got to be careful with that. All right, y'all. And I'm going to close it out because my son just came in. I mean, he wants to ask his mommy something. Y'all know how that goes. But ladies, let's be wiser. Okay, let's be wiser. I'd hate to be out here starting a whole life with somebody who has no intentions of solidifying things with me. I would be honey. Okay. Pay attention to how people exit out of previous relationships because a lot of times you're getting the forecast of exactly what you're going into. Okay. You're getting a forecast. A manipulator or someone who wants what they want, I kid you not, pay attention to the words coming out of their mouth, how they talk about people, in particular, the mother of their kids, the father of their kids. Again, the truth is the truth. So if someone's just telling the truth, that's different, honey. But to be, calling people all out their name, they're this, they're that, honey, I promise you, your time will be next. I promise you. Just as sure as you're no longer the hot topic, and you probably never were, this may be just something, like what they say, the grass is always greener because it's fake. And that fakeness could have been in the mindset of the person who pursues you, or it's just, it's entirely, this isn't what it is. And so again, lack of discernment. Draw close to God. So here comes the motivation in the end. I motivate you and encourage you to draw closer to God so that you can see through the fog. Because a lot of people pretend. A lot of people pretend. All right. And from speaking for a woman, a lot of times a woman, especially if you already have a child, you probably already feel like, oh, nobody's gonna want me. A manipulator knows what words to use on you, you single mom. And they'll come right up and enter your course of life, implant a seed in you. And again, that child will have their that man or that man's, if it's a man, that child will have that man's last name before you do, because that was probably never a part of the plan at all. Be careful out here in these streets, y'all. Seek wisdom from the Most High God. Seek guidance from the Most High God. You need that discernment, and stop wanting to shy away from talking to people in prior relationships. That's where you mess up at first and foremostly, for the most part. I'm telling you, but it's because that person that you are now connected with, they've gotten into your head. Baby, wake up. Wake up. Wake up. Motivation on the go with Shay on today, y'all. Have a great day. I look forward to talking to you guys soon. Peace out. Bye-bye.